Hey there, Global Church family. Welcome back to the ongoing conversation about international missions at Fellowship Bible Church, where you get a front row seat to hear what God is continually doing to establish His church around the world. And this is where we're so excited to have Josh Patterson and Alicia Reed on the podcast today to talk about a new curriculum project that Global Missions is undertaking in 2025. So do you guys just want to introduce yourself? Alicia, do you want to go first?
Yeah, my name is Alicia Reed. I have been going to FBC since 2015 and joined Global Missions about that time.
Okay.
My name is Joshua Patterson. I've been a member of FBC since 2022, I think. And in 2023, maybe, Scott McManigal asked me to be part of the missions committee.
Okay, gotcha. So you've been involved for a couple years. And so we have this new project. So Jim and Scott in the last podcast alluded to, they're kind of rewriting a lot of the curriculums. And so that's kind of what you guys are here to talk about, but not in terms of for adults, but for kids. So Alicia, can you kind of tell the story of how this came about?
So for me, it came about back when I was in college. I originally went to school to be a teacher, but one of the classes I was in, we had a missionary come in and start talking about his involvement with kids and taking flights to the kids. Mm-hmm. And then the next class, we had a professor come in and start talking about children's ministry and starting the children's ministry program at college. And it really laid it on my heart to do that because I went to school to impact the next generation. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard about children's ministry before. So while I was in the children's ministry program, literally changed the my degree that day.
Wow.
Yeah. I went down, or I was in a class for curriculum writing where they really took us through the different curriculums, and I realized that the curriculum for Americans is pretty bad. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's not a lot of foundational teaching for children. It's a lot of fluff and entertainment, and there's not a lot of curriculum out there that really teaches children, and that kind of hurt me.
Yeah.
And so that's back then is when I started, whenever I taught a class, I'd write my own programs and start really learning how to do that. And once Stephen and I graduated, we looked at what it would be like to take and go overseas and do stuff. And I started looking for a curriculum for missions, but there really wasn't anything. And so it was back then that I actually started to write it, but then life got crazy for Stephen and I. And so I set it aside. I still have my original stuff that I started writing. And we ended up here at FBC, and God really worked on Stephen and I with grace and having that in my life. I started getting more and more involved with missions and learning the curriculum, and it came about that they started talking about wanting to have more children's ministry curriculum, and I stepped forward and talked to Scott and Jim and said, hey, I would like to be involved with that. That's something that's my passion. One of my abilities is to be able to take a concept that's really, really hard for most adults and take it down to a children's level. So I started working on that, and they asked me to do Knowing God for Kids.
Okay.
So I got Knowing God for Kids out with the help of Josh's wife, Jennifer, and Alyssa Avery.
Okay.
And then it just came to a stop because Scott and Jim were writing and rewriting curriculum. So then I started looking at working with the different pastors and what they would need to try, and the need is huge. They want a lot of training and stuff, and it's too much for one person, which this is where Josh would come in.
Yeah. So, but that's so cool that how God had been working in you from all the way back in college, like giving you that desire on your heart to help these children understand these concepts and being able to write the curriculum. And then fast forward to now you're at FBC. We've talked about it on this podcast many times that Global Missions has curriculum. They have Knowing God, Creation to Christ, and then a lot of books of the New Testament, and they're available for adults. They're all here located either online or here at FBC in the Missions Stairwell. but there's not any for kids, right? And so now we're coming to a place where, okay, so we've seen Scott and Jim this past year. They've been traveling all over the continent of Africa, so many new locations, so many new pastors who are hearing this grace message, a lot of them for the first time and truly understanding grace. And so I guess my question is, why now? Like, how is this connecting with what Scott and Jim are doing, this project here?
So that's me, I guess. As you mentioned, Scott and Jim have been doing a lot of traveling around Africa. And I actually went to Nigeria with them last summer, and we did a 2-week conference in Jos. And while we were there, I realized that we had a lot of leaders there. And on that weekend, we went to a church, and we did some sharing at a church. And I realized that, while the adults are getting a grace-based, foundational, sort of progressive truth message, I'm not sure what the kids are getting. And if the kids are still just getting great heroes from the Bible tales about how awesome David was, or, Noah and his ark, and they're not getting those things placed correctly in the context of God's eternal plan of redemption, then you're basically just teaching the kids something you're going to have to unteach them when they become teenagers or adults.
Right.
And so I was aware at that time that Alicia had worked on Knowing God for Kids, because as she mentioned, my wife helped do some editing, and we also used part of that when we did the family camp the first year. And I knew there was a Creation of Christ for Kids, and I know that there was a New Birth Explained for Kids, because we used both of those with our kids. But that was it. And so, I was just sitting there in Nigeria, and one night, me, Jim, and Scott were sitting in a room, and we were just talking, and I just said, hey, what if we put together a team and just start working to produce lessons for kids? Because it seems to me important that the kids are learning the same thing that their parents are learning. And it'll make it easier for the parents to have those conversations with their kids. It'll be easier for kids to have those conversations with their parents. I mean, it goes both ways. If the kid's learning progressive foundational truth through God's eternal plan, the parent's not getting it, well, sometimes the kids can help. And, vice versa, the parents can help the kids. So it just seemed to me that if we are going to expand through all of these different places in Africa, and they're going to want our curriculum, then we should have a curriculum that works for all ages.
Yeah.
And so Jim and Scott basically said, whatever you want to do, they gave me permission to do whatever I want to do. So you guys heard that. That's true. Don't check on that, please. But they said sure. And so when I got back, I hooked up with Alicia, and I said, hey, I know what you're doing. Let me help you. So as Alicia said, her skill is making things easier for kids. My skill is getting a large group of people together to do something and then slowly slipping out the back door. And then while they're all doing the thing and then they complete the thing, I come back at the end. So that's what I do well. Yeah. So I'm just trying to organize people together to help complete this thing, because it seems to me in a church that has 2,000-3,000 people in it, there's surely more than one person who can do this.
Right.
And so, that's with all the families and all the homeschool moms that we have, and my family's a homeschool family with a homeschool mom, and and with all of the opportunities that we have in the community, surely that God has given us more than one person who can work on this thing. And so I stole the idea from the international teams. They do the same thing. When they get the curriculum from us, they get a team together and they translate it together as a team. And so, as a body working together as a team, it just makes sense to me.
Right. Absolutely. And so we're talking about a team, so let's dive into different facets of it, because it's, like you said, it's not just you two doing it. There's a whole group of people. But Alicia, you've already shared that your gift is like kind of taking the adult curriculum and then rewriting it for kids. So can you walk us through, what does that process look like?
So basically, what I do is for like knowing God, I set up a basically an outline of to follow for each lesson. That would be easy for anybody to take off a shelf. If you were a parent or a Sunday school teacher, it can be used at home or in the classroom, and they could use it to how they want to. Because you can't go to Africa and use an American curriculum because there's no Hobby Lobby or other places like that we can just go buy inflatables or fancy glowy things. We have to think about what's around the people, you know. So I try to gear it to stuff that they can use and what they have available, and then basically use stuff that would be easy to pull off the internet if they needed to, or print.
Gotcha. So like really trying to make it as, I don't know how to say this, like culturally vague as possible, but that
Yes.
A church in Africa will have no issue using it if like a church in South America does, because it's broad enough that everybody can understand it. So you're talking towards the writing, but there are also other elements to this team. So Josh, could you speak to what other elements are part of this project?
Yeah, sure. So there's obviously the lesson writing part, and in the lesson writing part, besides the people writing the lessons, we need people who love editing things. And there are people out there, I'm sure, who are insane and enjoy going line by line and looking for commas and looking for passive voice and active voice, and they just love it. I don't know why they do, but they do. And so, you know, they're going to help us to make sure that everything that we write is in correct English, mainly because it makes it easier for the translation teams. Because most of these are not going to be used in English. I mean, people here, obviously in FPC, will be able to use them in English, but when they're going to Africa, when they're going to South America, people are translating them. So we want to make sure that not only are they in clear English, but they're also in simplified English in that sense. Right, we don't want to use a $5 word when we can use $2-3 words, right? So we want to make it easier in that sense. So the editorial team is going to help to polish it mainly. Their job is not content but polish, and then past that we have an illustration team. For obvious reasons, we don't want to use illustrations, pictures, drawings from the internet. We want to use our own, and we have people here who are talented. And who are good at creating art. Even someone mentioned to me, I believe his name was Stephen Reed, mentioned to me AI art, which I have not heard of because I don't use the internet. But he mentioned something about that. So, you know, we want to have, once again, these are for kids. You know, if you look at the adult books, there's no pictures. I mean, that's pretty standard. But if you look at a book for kids, there's pictures. Kids like pictures. Some adults like pictures too, but we take them away when they're adults because we're mean. So kids like pictures, so we want to put pictures in there. And also, you know, a picture can help to relate a truth that maybe it's hard to understand in words. It makes the story more relatable if we give characters. And once again, we have to be careful here because what's culturally relevant in the U.S. is not culturally relevant in Africa or South America. So we don't want to draw pictures of people, you know, playing football or eating turkeys for Thanksgiving. Like, that's not going to work.
Right.
So there's a little bit of thought that needs to go into that beyond just like, hey, this is fun. Let's draw, you know, 3 people playing baseball. I mean, that may not work. So beyond the illustration team, we're looking at an engagement team. So how do we engage the students in the classroom? How do we engage the students outside the classroom? How do we engage the students with their parents? In what ways can we make this fun, interactive, so, you know, it doesn't feel like, you know, a 30, 40-minute lecture, but it feels like something that they can be involved in. And once again, as Alicia was mentioning, that's tough because, you know, here in the U.S., you just print out a bunch of handouts and hand it to them, give them some crayons, and you say, go to town. That's not what's going to happen in most of these other places. Printing is not that simple, and it's not that easy, and it can be very expensive. And so we want to make sure that we're thinking of creative ways that they can engage with the teacher and with the students, and we want them to be able to engage with their parents outside of, because once again, the idea is we're trying to target the whole church, not just the leadership. We work through the leadership, we meet with the leaders and we disciple the leaders, but the goal is for the leaders to then take that to the rest of the church. And so we want to help the leaders be able to take this to their kids ministry. There's a layout team, and so they're going to be working on putting everything together. I've had a conversation with Jennifer Wiseman, and she's working together with the communications team, and they're going to be able to do a lot of that, is what she told me. Maybe I'm saying something I'm not supposed to, but when I talked to her, she said yes. So she's sort of locked in now. There's layout team, and then the final team is the teaching team. And so the process, the most important process is taking these lessons and making sure that we are communicating with the teachers who are going to be giving these lessons, because you can give a lesson to anybody, and if they don't understand God's plan, if they don't understand grace, if they don't understand what we're trying to communicate, they're going to take whatever they want out of it. And you may have heard Scott and Jim say this a million times, because it's true. I mean, I can hand you knowing God, and if you don't buy into the meta-narrative, you don't buy into God's eternal plan, if you don't buy into grace, you're going to read through that and you're going to say, that's cool. God loves me, he died for me, and now I have to go out and earn it on my own. And you'll come away with that, because that's just what you've been taught your whole life. And so we want to make sure that we're emphasizing with these teachers grace, and they're understanding that. And we're also making sure that they want to emphasize that with the students, with the kids, because the key is, there's going to be stories about Daniel, and there's going to be stories about David, and there's going to be stories about Noah and Moses, but the Bible is about God and his plan and his purposes. And so we want to emphasize those, and we want to disciple the teachers. And so we want to work together with them so that they can feel comfortable and confident to carry on. We'd like to make a media library of those teachings lessons, so that we can share those with people, in perpetuity. But I mean, one of the key facets of, or one of the key goals, missions, I forget what it's called, of the global missions team is enduring relationships. And so we want to be able to we don't want to just say, hey, we made these lessons, awesome, here you guys go, and we'll talk to you guys in heaven. We want to work with them, we want to walk through it with them, we want to be there to support them and go with them as they are sharing these lessons. And it's going to give us good feedback, and it's going to help us because they're going to make it relevant to their culture, which will help us to improve it. And, hopefully people here at FBC will want to use it with their kids at home. I know I probably will.
Yeah, that's awesome, because again, it's all about, like you guys were saying earlier, establishing the local church. That's something that Jim and Scott say all the time, and so this just plays another part of it. And then I kind of want to bring up something. So you talked about having people with all sorts of different giftings being involved, but also what a great way for people in our local body to be involved in global missions and never have to leave the country, because we know that's just not feasible for everybody, depending on life stages or whatever it is. And so this is another amazing opportunity, because my guess is we still have needs for people on all of those teams.
Yeah, we have all the teams are open. We have essentially how it's set up. We have team leaders, and 3 of the 5 teams have leaders currently. We're working on 2 leaders for the other 2 teams. That would be the illustration team, and then the engagement team. I have a person in mind who I've talked to. But the beauty is you're just going to work with a small team. You don't have to worry about handling the whole project. You're just going to work together with your team, and you're going to work on your small part of it, and then it'll all come together at the end. And like you said, it's your opportunity to make an impact with global missions, and you don't need a passport. And you don't need to get on a plane and take some melatonin and try to sleep 10 hours.
Right. Yeah, you can just do it from the comfort here. And just another way that we here at FBC get to partner with the Global Church, and a way to form relationships. We have Global Church Week coming up later this year, and how awesome would it be if you're a part of the team and you've been working with this one church, say in Africa, and then they're coming here and you get to meet them in person. Just how awesome and exciting that would be. My final question for you guys would be, what are big prayer requests that you would have for as this project is being undertaken and going in? Alicia, I'll come your way first.
I guess maybe just for people who are willing to go through the grace message and learn to write least for my side, because there's a lot of books to go through and write.
Yeah.
Because right now it's just me and Alyssa doing
Okay.
it. Alyssa started doing the meta-narrative, and that alone is a big project to bring down to a kid's level, especially since they want to use it for summer camp
Oh, wow.
this summer.
Yeah.
And I'm just started doing Creation to Christ to do the same thing for them for summer camp this summer in June. And then afterwards I'll be doing Acts, and Alyssa will be taking Romans, but there's so many other books to write, and we want to just get it done as quickly as possible, but as true to the word.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, mine is sort of twofold, because no matter what happens, we will always be waiting for Jim and Scott to finish their rewrites. And so, once again, it's two guys undertaking rewriting 10, 15, studies of whole books of the Bible.
Right.
So that's a lot of work and a lot of effort. Luckily for us, they've already got 3 or 4 in the hopper, so we have a good place to start. But obviously for them, as they're working through those things, that they would continue to have wisdom and the ability to do that. And then, people, what people who are interested or who are willing to work together and be a part of a team and hopefully accomplish something. And it's not going to go perfect. Things are going to mess up. Things are going to go crazy. And, we all have to be willing to trust in God and lean on His grace for all of us. And, who knows? We may never accomplish this. We may not, or whatever God's will is, it will be done for us. But I think it's a worthy endeavor to try to work towards this thing for helping the local church. And so, just pray for us. It's a lot of pressure on Alicia. I'm trying to take no pressure. It's the least amount of pressure possible. So it's a lot of pressure on Alicia, and Alyssa. Try saying that 5 times fast. Because they're doing most of the hard work.
Yeah.
And once we get together and get the other team members, they're the ones who are going to be doing a lot of the work. So pray for them as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And then if somebody does want to be a part of this, if they hear this and they're like, oh man, I love drawing, I would love to be a part of illustrating, or man, I would love to communicate this with our global church partners, who should they reach out to?
You can reach out to me. If you see me in the hallways, feel free to stop me. I usually have a name tag on. I come to FSAT. It's the best SAT that you can come to. Wait, that doesn't work. It's the best F you can come to. That doesn't work either. I'm working shop in that one. We'll come back to it. But you can email me. I believe that Emma Kate's going to put my email in the comment section. That's jimpf@fbcva.org. And then in the header, put kids ministry or global church kids, something like that lets me know that you guys are interested, and I'll be happy to get back with you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and sharing about this project, and it'll be exciting to see what God does through all of this. So,
Yeah.
And then thank you for everyone who is listening. And also, if you want to learn more about our global church partners, make sure you check out the Missions Stairwell that is right next to the North Main entrance. Each month, the Grace Ministry of Global Missions highlights a different partner, and this month we are highlighting Hanson and Jocelyn in India. So in the stairwell, you can find info sheets about them, their ministry, prayer requests, and activities for the kids. And for all of our listeners and viewers, remember that we always love to hear from you. So you can send us your thoughts, questions, requests, and you can do that at fbcva.org/podcast and write us your notes and comments there. Thanks for watching and listening, and remember that it is Christ who is continually building His church until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God.